that keep coming in, or these people coming in from different countries, we know that we ain't had it. When these people came, we had it. So they brought it that it was actually wasn't the fleas. It was the bacteria that lives inside the fleas that was giving niggas the plague, right? So could you have stopped the plague without a vaccine? Yeah, they did, right? They didn't have no vaccine. Well, what stopped the vaccine? What stopped the plague was quarantines, right? If you had a ship that was coming in, or you was coming in from another country, they made your ass sit somewhere for four, right? Like a quarter is 4. They made you sit for 40 days, right? Until whatever it was cycled through, and then they will let you in the city, right? So they ain't had no vaccines, but somehow they stopped it, right? Because they figured out social distancing, which is what quarantining is, right? They took certain precautions, right? They maybe they didn't fully understand where the disease was coming from, but they were able to make general guesses and look at the macros of it and was able to do something about it. Today, we know exactly where this shit comes from. It comes from you. It comes from your ass, right? You, not you specifically, but us, human beings, right? This ain't something that's coming in on the backs of rats and just floating around, or on some monkeys or some shit like that. Like, it's coming from you. Like, niggas is catching it from each other. You understand what I'm saying? Like, you catching it from each other, right? Like, your homie is giving it to you. Like, your son gave it to you. That's niggas ain't just magically catching the shit in the night. You know, like, you human beings are giving it to each other, right? The Black Death, human beings weren't giving it to each other. Fleas was giving it to human beings, right? They was jumping around biting niggas, right? Malaria is given from people, like mosquitoes biting motherfuckers. It ain't you breathing and you giving a nigga malaria. That's not how it works, right? So the thing we do know about COVID-19 is it's passed from human to human. That's how we catching it, right? You can stop that by keeping humans away from other humans. You don't need no vaccine. You don't need no eradication program. You don't need none of that shit. You just need to keep humans who have it away from humans who don't have it. And eventually, that shit will go away. Right? Period. You feel me? And you wore a mask. No, masks don't work. Like, I mean, if everybody wore a mask, I mean, the shit would work. But yeah, masks don't work if half niggas wearing the mask, half niggas don't wear the mask. Okay. So we already got it. Niggas don't want to wear masks. People don't want social distance. Fine. You know, we do have, though, vaccines. Right? For the people who don't want to deal with the people who ain't finna wear no mask, who ain't finna social distance properly, who don't really give a fuck, like, a vaccine protects us from y'all. The vaccine not protecting us from COVID, my nigga. The vaccine is protecting me from you. From your ass, you feel me? Because you don't want to do whatever needs to get done or take the proper precautions or decisions to isolate yourself when you're feeling sick, stay out of certain circumstances and situations, and don't pass it along. So I'm taking the vaccine, not because I just trust the vaccine. Now, I'm taking the vaccine because we've proven that we can't trust each other in this motherfucker, right? Because we're giving it to ourselves, us human beings. Animals is looking at us like we motherfucking crazy. They're like, these niggas is wild. So let me stop cussing. So that's part of me taking the vaccine. Am I going to take the vaccine immediately? Like, no, but nobody's going to take the vaccine immediately. It's people already with the vaccine, right? Understand that there's probably hundreds of thousands of people around the world right now who are vaccinated from COVID-19, part of the testing process, right? So when you going to wait till it's millions? I need 30 million people to get the vaccine before I take it, right? I mean, 100,000 not good enough for you? Maybe it's not, right? But the trials are already happening. So trust me, the sample size is enough of 50,000, 30,000, whatever it is, that if someone's going to go way, way wrong, we'd have been found out. We'd have been found out within that population of 30, 40,000 people. And half the other kicker of it is that, to be honest, half the people didn't get it. They got a placebo, right? So to really test and make sure the shit that works. So they give half the people the real shit. They give other people the placebo. Then they send them out to the world and see if they catch it, right? And the signals and signs are coming back that the people who get vaccinated don't catch it, right? They don't have adverse effects, right? They eyeballs not melting out. They're not catching autism. They ain't got microchips in them. Like, none of that shit's proven to be true. But what's proven to be true is that there's a 90 to 94 percentile rate of effectiveness with no side effects and shit like that. Cool, I'm with it. As they do more trials and more tests and more people take it, you know, we're going to figure out there's going to be some people that's going to take it and be fucked up. That's a given. That happens with all vaccines. It ain't like vaccines are perfect. They've never said that they were, right? But vaccines are better than just catching the disease in the raw and then rolling the dice to see what's going to happen to you, right? But some people, they don't believe that for various reasons, and I don't want to get into that. I just want to focus on me. So I'm taking it. I'm looking at this test results just like you are. I'm looking at the studies just like you are. I'm reading all of the research and evidence just like you are or you are not. I'm looking at society as a whole. I'm looking at how niggas is playing around and playing in the streets and not taking this shit serious. And for me, the only option, and especially what I want to do and get back to normal and go see my mom and then travel and do other things, get the fuck up away from around y'all, is I need this vaccine. You know? So for me, that's my piece. You may think of it differently. You may have a whole bunch of extra other things on your head, and that's fine. But that's just my opinion. And I'm not trying to change your mind, right? But I'm definitely going to try and, there's so much, Rizza Islam, they've been bringing you up a lot. And I would love to educate me on what I don't know. Because everybody keep telling me that. And he declined. Just like everybody who tells me that it's so much that I don't know, whenever I bring them in, they never come on. So it makes me think like, wait, maybe. So everybody who want me to take the vaccine, they get on. They explain it. They spread it out. They go public. They talk about the shit. Everybody who tell me I don't know what I'm talking about, it be this whole like, would tell me, no, well, you know, you got to look at Dr. Samantha Stephanie Birkenshire from, she had the AIDS vaccine. Nigga, ain't no AIDS vaccine. Right? They don't even have one. So what you talking about? She had an AIDS vaccine and she did this. Nigga, ain't no AIDS vaccine. Five minutes. I'm with you, bro. I got 5 minutes. At the end of the day, that's where I'm taking it, right? And I know a lot of y'all not gonna take it, and y'all got all these reasons, and that's fine, right? That's fine. And as long as the reasons have not already been debunked, like that shit's not real, that shit's overblown, that's overplayed, that's not safe enough. For example, one folks like, no, you just gotta let your body do it. What you mean let your body do it? You know, your body on its own is able to fight that shit off as long as you supplement it with this, that, and the third. Like, really? Like, yeah, you know, if you just, you know, you know, what you mean? Like, if you eat this, and you eat that, you mean like take medicine? Like, yeah, you take, you know, you eat like certain plants and flowers and sea moss and shit like that. You know, you mean like take medicine? Yeah, like you put things that's not already naturally occurring in your body into your body to like fuck with the chemistry of your body to build up your immune system to fight whatever the fuck this is. So you mean you just can't really leave it to your body to do it. You got to take in other shit outside of your body and put that shit in your body to have an effect on your body. But the shit that you're taking, it also causes other things within the body as well, right? And you got to build up a tolerance to that shit and kind of build up over time incrementally levels of this shit in your body, which is going to take a long time. So you got to eat a whole lot of that shit to get to like the levels that you would need to be over time. And it, in that process, is still not making you immune within a few days. Like it's weeks and months, right? And if you, in those weeks and months, if you come into contact with that shit, you're going to catch it, whether you eating that shit or not. Like, well, you could just take this pill and get this shit over with right now. But you know, but the pill has the side effects too. But yeah, the pill has the side effects of it happening right now, and whatever the fuck is gonna happen to you is gonna happen to you right now. but the goal is to not catch the disease. Nah, man, that don't make no sense. Okay. I'm definitely taking this vaccine. Lupe Fiasco is definitely taking the COVID-19 vaccine, right? I'm going to take all them bitches. The Johnson & Johnson one, the Moderna one, the one from Cuba that Farrakhan was talking about. I'm going to take the one from, I'm not taking the one from Russia. The one from China, maybe, right? If Japan, nigga, I'm taking all them motherfuckers. Every single one of them. So I don't know how kick push got you to thinking that I'm not taking vaccines, or I don't know where you got that from. And I appreciate the love as a fan, but nigga, I'm taking all that shit, and I explain why, and I'll explain it again. We wouldn't need a vaccine if people was properly socially distancing and wearing masks, right? But they not. They not. We finna be at, in America, 200,000 cases a day, 1,000 deaths a day, right? Right, 1,000 deaths a day. 200. We finna be at 200,000 cases a day. How's that happening? How's that happening? I know how it's happening. Is Rizza ready? Okay. He gonna chime in when he ready. How is that happening? Have you went around your neighborhood? Right? Have you went around your neighborhood and seen how could that be possible? Have you went to your city? Right? Rizza, can you comment in the comment section, and so I can add you in, please, so I can get this education? Oh, the reports is fake. Brother Rizza Islam, if you there in the this, if you hear me, can you just like comment in the comment section, and I'm gonna add you from the comment section? Because whenever I do the adding from the live side, it shut down the chat. Oh, it's population control. Oh, okay. Where are the numbers coming from? Numbers are coming from the CDC. Numbers are coming from what is it? NYU. What do you mean? Where are your numbers coming from? Where's the idea that the numbers are fake coming from? I got you. Here we go. Ladies and gentlemen, the illustrious Rizza Islam into the chat for the education. What's up, brother?
Salam, brother. How you feeling?
Walaikum assalam.
Yes, sir.
Break me off the education, because every time I talk about vaccines, every time I talk about Tuskegee, every time I bring up something about these vaccines and COVID-19, they say, man, you don't know what you're talking about. You need to talk to Rizza Islam. You need to talk to Rizza. Here we are.
Yes, sir. Well, my brother. Well, first of all, I'm honored to speak with you, number one, because you are a very intelligent brother, and I've always loved your work. That's the first thing. So I don't do the back and forth debate, angry things, the conjecture. You know, when people get into their emotions, rightfully so, which we understand, but I don't do that. I go off of the actual science. I have been to the CDC. I have been inside of the CDC. I have met with the scientists. This is what I've been doing for well over 6 or 7 years.
Right.
I have educated politicians and artists like yourself, et cetera, because we deserve to have the actual facts. You know,
right.
Regardless of emotion, we need to know, because people really want to be safe. And that's what I'm hearing from you, is you're like, listen, I just want to be safe. That's all. And I thank you for at least opening yourself up to being educated and learning learning about these things. So first thing I say is, brother, according to the Center for Disease Control, number one, The Center for Disease Control, along with the FDA, along with HHS, Health and Human Services, are all under investigation, along with the National Institute of Health, not only for fraudulently skewing science and numbers. One, where it comes to the MMR vaccine, measles, mumps, rubella, which is what's called a trivalent or multivalent or 3 viruses in one needle vaccine. You have a scientist by the name of Dr. William Thompson. He is the senior lead scientist over the Center for Disease Control's Vaccine Division, who currently still works there. Now, he admitted in 2014, and he was referencing 2011, that he and 3 particular individuals who worked in the CDC, one is Dr. Frank DeStefano, the other is Dr. Marsha Lynn Jurgen Alsop, and the other is Dr. Colleen Boyle. He and those 3 were in one of the offices in the CDC where they went over the science dealing with the MMR vaccine, where it determined that Black boys were coming down with autism or being placed on the autism spectrum at the rate of 236% more than Caucasian boys. And they were trying to figure out why these numbers were saying this. Now, this is in a number of documentaries. You can see it in the documentary called Vaxxed. You can see it in a documentary called Trace Amounts, produced by Eric Layden. It's very widely known. They try to, throw it under the rug, etc. But Dr. William Thompson held a 3.5 maybe 4 hour phone conversation with Dr. Brian Hooker, a very good friend of mine, where he admitted all of this. And the audio is on YouTube, so you can listen to that audio where he breaks down everything, where he says that, yes, we found out what these vaccines were doing. One, to Black boys, due to the increase of testosterone in Black boys, it enhances the effect of the mercury. Now, the thimerosal is the ethyl mercury, not the methyl, because people say, well, no, mercury's in fish, mercury's in breast milk. That's the organic form of mercury, which is the kind of mercury that washes out of the brain. But the ethyl is the inorganic form that is highly enhanced due to the chemicals, from the production plants and the mercury that you find in thermometers, that if the thermometer falls on the ground, they have to evacuate wherever that location is, and they have to bring in hazardous materials, suit-wearing individuals to clean it up. That is the same kind of mercury that is in the flu vaccine, that is in the MMR vaccine, that is in the hepatitis B vaccine, all of these that are given to children prior to the year of 2, which is on the CDC's vaccine schedule, where they're supposed to be getting vaccines between 12 to 15 months. Now, regarding the COVID situations, I wanted you to know, this is what I do. This is an area that I'm highly involved in. So COVID, this circumstance, the reason why people are coming at you so hard and saying, brother, you sound crazy because you talking about taking the vaccine. One, you are trying to be safe. So I understand where you're coming from. You're just like, listen, y'all not socially distancing. Listen, y'all not, wearing masks. Y'all not doing. I get what you're saying, but I encourage you to look at this end of it. According to the Center for Disease Control, vaccines take no less than 10 to 15 years to be determined fully safe.
Right.
They cannot determine the safety of a vaccine in less than 15 months. That literally isn't possible. The only way they can even foist that upon the people is by them literally lying. And then once they send that vaccine out to the people, this will be the greatest experiment that has ever occurred due to their own scientific deductions. So they're going against their own scientific deductions when they say, we're going to send this vaccine out. And partially because they don't know what else to do. They don't know what else to do. And this is the actual facts. Like you're saying, many of these scientists do not know what the hell to do because they've never encountered something like this before. But in reality, the only surefire 100% way, or should I say the closest to 100% way to overcome a virus is by the increase of the immune system of the body. That is the natural way to have immunity. Natural way to have immunity. So when people talk about herd immunity, when they talk about shedding, when they talk about these different scientific terms, actual virus, there is no other way when it comes to vaccine. Or vaccinating a person is bypassing the body's immune system. The immune system takes place about 75 to 80% in the gut or the stomach. So through digestion is when the viruses are broken down, through the negative, unneeded, unwanted bacteria is broken down, and through that, your body is able to identify what a virus is, check it out, send the white blood cells, the antibodies, etc., and destroy it. So it's through ingestion, not injection. They know this. They know this. The same doctors, and I'll say it this way, for people who don't believe that autism has anything to do with vaccines, there's a book titled Miller's 400 or Miller's Review that goes over at least 400 studies connecting autism to vaccines. There is a documentary, a 4-part long documentary with over 60 medical professionals that were interviewed, titled The Truth About Vaccines by Ty Bollinger, an investigative journalist, where he literally interviewed nothing but medical professionals, everyone who was highly qualified, everyone who was highly certified and experienced, where they are explaining, number one, that they were never educated fully about vaccines. There is not one medical school in America that actually has classes solely on vaccines, my brother, which is, I know it's hard to believe, told me to my face. I've met with plenty of them. The only classes that they have near being educated about vaccines are 3 classes. That is immunology, microbiology, and pathology, which are very good factors, but they do not address vaccines specifically. And the reason why that is because there is a system called the VAERS system. This is a part of the Center for Disease Control, as well as the Department of Health and Health and Human Services. VAERS stands for Vaccine Adverse Events Reporting System. This is the section of the government where a doctor, a nurse, a LVN, or RN are supposed to report if any adverse effects, any negative effects occur from being injected with a vaccine. If they inject any of their patients, children or adults, if they see any negative effects from a vaccine, they are supposed to report it to the VAERS system. Do you know that over 98% of medical professionals in America knew nothing about the VAERS system? They knew nothing about it. Here's another point on that. So go ahead.
I got a quick question.
Yes, sir.
And I understand I know about thimerosal. I've watched the vaccine documentaries. I've been through all of this. My question to you is very general. So you mentioned 400 medical professionals or 400 studies.
Correct.
And that's a lot.
Absolutely.
But that's very small compared to how many actual medical professionals and actually studies there are in the world, right? Which speak against what you just said, who actually agree and showcase the effectivity of vaccines, and medical professionals and doctors who outweigh by tens of exponentials above the amount of doctors who disagree with vaccines. Also, as much as we play this game of the healthcare professionals and we don't trust doctors and stuff like that, it's funny how we all trust doctors when it comes down to vaccines, but when it comes to everything else, it's like, I don't know, I'm gonna just thug it out, I'm gonna figure it out on my own. Other piece, I know a bunch of doctors who run whole surgical institutes, whole situations, right? And sometimes doctors are wrong. Sometimes doctors don't know what they're talking about. Sometimes scientists don't know what they're talking about. Scientists who make vaccines, scientists who disagree with vaccines, climate scientists, right? They don't know everything. They might have a specific profession or a specific kind of focus in a very specific part of science, right? That may be highly theoretical, right? That has nothing to do with anything practicable or applicable, or wouldn't even be allowed for ethical reasons to even be practiced on animals, let alone even human beings, right?
Right.
And I've seen, and bringing it back to COVID, I've seen doctors full on, they're accredited, they got their records, they got their whole shit, who don't know the difference between a picture of a vaccine and a picture of a bacteria. If you showed them COVID and you showed what you can see with a microscope, okay, but then they'll go on for hours and hours about how it's all fucked up. But it's like you can't even tell the physical difference between a vaccine and a bacteria, right? And these are the I see that are leading the charge relates to the COVID vaccine and COVID in and of itself. So even going back to the CDC, You mentioned 4 people from the CDC. The CDC is massive, right? Massive. The HHS is massive. WHO is massive. Like, these are massive organizations, right? And you pick 4 people, right? Who, some of these people are on record as being disgruntled employees. You got folks who come out of the woodworks who are upset that their paper didn't get published because somebody else's paper got published. So now they're trying to discredit all of the work of these other scientists because they didn't get their way, right? At the expense of public health. Fuck me, fuck you, right? It's about them getting their way. And because they did it because of the politics, or they didn't get the job, or they didn't get this, now it's like, fuck everybody else. That happens in academia, right? That happens it happens in religion. It happens in the music business, right? So as much as we try and give credit to science, science can be wrong. But at the same time too, science can be wrong. So the same science that you're stating and referencing certain scientists and saying that other scientists are the scientists that they're against are wrong, but my scientists are the good ones, it rises, for me, cause for concern, right? Of where,
I got you. I think you may have misunderstood what I was saying on that. But
what's the standard we're using for validity and credibility with these people when we're just using the same? You use the CDC's mistakes, and then you validate the CDC's mistakes with its own reports. I wanted to ask you, who is investigating the CDC and the National Health Service, not National Health Service, that's UK, but the HHS and these organizations? Like, what organization or body is investigating these people?
Good questions. Good question. Well, first, I listened to everything you said. I understood everything you said. I'm going to go back to, I think, 2 or 3 points you brought up, and I'm going to lead up to that one, if you don't mind. The first thing, when you mention as far as the scientists, I'm not bringing up my scientists or their scientists or et cetera, to benefit my point or someone else's point. I'm only bringing up the actual scientists who have the senior authority. Like when I mentioned Dr. William Thompson, he is the senior, literally his title, his actual description is the senior lead scientist over the Center for Disease Control's Vaccine Division. No one in the world can supersede what he says. That he literally is the head authority. And he admitted that what they did was they intentionally hid the data regarding vaccines, and particularly the MMR, measles and mumps rubella vaccine, and how it was increasing the likelihood of autism in Black boys at the rate of 236% more than Caucasian boys. Now, that was admitted by him. That was admitted by Dr. Colleen Boyle, or pardon me, not admitted by Dr. Colleen Boyle, Dr. Marshall and Jurgen Alsop, and Dr. Frank DeStefano. They were the only ones who tried to hide it and get rid of it. And they literally ordered a trash can in to shred the documentation and to get rid of all of the digital evidence. But he did not get rid of it. He leaked it and pushed it out through Dr. William Thompson, who is right here in California, very heavy scientist in that area, who was a part of the leaking and a part of the whistleblowing factor of it. Number 2, there is something called the National Childhood Vaccine Injury Act of 1986. And in 1986, the vaccine manufacturers went to Congress and they let Congress know, listen, we are getting too many lawsuits. We're losing too much money. You have to exempt us from liability if you want us to continue to manufacture vaccines, if you want us to continue to do certain things. If you do not make us exempt from liability, then we will not make vaccines for you. And if anything happens in America, a breakout or whatever, then you won't have us to come to. So what are you going to do? Congress then said, okay, fine. We will make you exempt from liability. So in 1986, the NCVIA, National Childhood Vaccine Injury Act, was passed, removing liability from vaccine manufacturers and therefore giving them carte blanche freedom of will to put anything in a vaccine. Once that occurred in 1986, prior to 1986, autism was in 1 in every 15,000 children. After 1986, autism skyrocketed by 1990 to 1 in 10,000. By literally 2016, at the end of Obama, I believe his second, 1990, all the way to 1 in 68 vaccines were removed from liability, and that they could put anything in a vaccine without being sued. Literally without being sued. Now, if you look at this right now, you will see they can put anything in the vaccine. Currently, in the flu vaccine, for example, they have porcine gelatin as an ingredient. We're Muslims. We don't eat pork. We're taught not to even touch the carcass or the dead body of a pig.
Yeah.
In the CK, maiden Darby canine kidney cell protein. This is in the flu vaccine. Another ingredient, of course, is formaldehyde, a pickling agent or chemical that is used in dead bodies to prevent them from decaying.
But the body naturally produces formaldehyde in and of itself.
Say it again.
The body naturally produces formaldehyde in and of itself. We naturally.
Yes, so it doesn't need the man-made. It doesn't need the man-made version. What I'm saying to you is all of these are ingredients, and I can go down a whole list of ingredients. Which, by the way, doctors do not know the ingredients. If you ask them the ingredients, because there are multiple ingredients, brother, that literally are not safe in any way. Aluminum. When you mix aluminum with ethyl mercury, it becomes totally acidic within the body, and it kills 100% of cells that it comes into activity with. And they state on the Center for Disease Control's website that you are not to mix aluminum with ethyl mercury, yet they have that in many of the vaccines. Now, I'm giving you the actual science, the facts, the data, the references on where to find it, not emotion. Because right now, brother, we're dealing with the lives of the people here. We're dealing with your life, my life, children, elders. They want to know what to do. So when I'm giving you all of these facts, all of these references, all of these statistics, as well as the government laws that are being passed, I want it to be known, brother, that we have to be educated, because you have a large platform, brother. You Lupe Fiasco, man.
Hold on.
And so I have to make sure you get the right information, so you can make your own decision.
Also, being Lupe Fiasco, do other things other than just being a rapper. I'll study equally as you do, get things critically. When you go, let's go back to this rise autism in 1989. You said that the correlation was causation. The correlation is these vaccine companies were allowed to be removed from what have you, et cetera. Even though that people don't have to take vaccines, they're not mandatory. So the liability still comes whether you want to take it or not.
The COVID vaccines will be made mandatory.
But here's the flip. Here's the flip, is that there's been many occasions throughout history where something happens and there's been a rise in something. And people do some type of, there had to be some type of chemical thing. It's like, no, sometimes what happened is they changed the way that thing is diagnosed. They didn't know what it was before. So they lump it into an autistic spectrum. But it could really not be, it could be something else. But let's just call it autism, because now outside of this vaccine piece, there's other incentives for us to bundle this. Right? So you see the same thing with ADHD. Right now, we didn't have quote unquote, we didn't have ADHD, right? You didn't have certain cancers and right? Back in, it wasn't called cancer. You just had bad blood or something. Tuberculosis wasn't called tuberculosis, right? And then when it becomes, let's find a way to diagnose it, let's find a way to actually test it. Then you kind of get a skyrocket in these cases, but it isn't necessarily correlated to this kind of piece of them being able to put any vaccine. Also, again, back to the vaccine ingredients. A lot of the ingredients that you mentioned are things that naturally occur in the human body. Formaldehyde naturally occurs in the human body, right? Other kind of metals, heavy metals, and trace amounts, you'll get more. You'll consume more of those heavy metals and those things in just the foods you consume. No vaccines, just in the food, no pills, no just going outside and pulling some out of your garden, right? You'll consume certain heavy metals and aluminum, different things that are just present in the soil, right? So that's that kind of one piece. In terms of like the pork aspect of it and the other kind of other animals and their kind of pieces. Like, people eat pork. People eat dogs. I've been in restaurants where they served what dog was on the menu. People eat cats. People eat bats. People eat all these things. Right? They eat all types of gelatins, right? There's people who at a certain you're taught to drink your own piss if you starve, if you're in a desert, right? You shouldn't, but there's that aspect. You'll drink your own waste materials, right? There's people who eat shit, right? Who eat human feces, right? As sport or for play or for some type of erotic situation, right? So everything that is in those vaccines, I will go to bat and say that people are already consuming in one way or another. My piece with that is that doesn't get to is the pieces of the material from the vaccines, the viruses that they are trying to fight against with the vaccine. Are those things causing these adverse effects, or is it these chemicals?
Mm-hmm. Good question. Very good question. And I mean,
it's the chemicals. If it's the aluminum, if it's the formaldehyde, if it's which is in tiny trace amounts in these vaccines, right? Is that the problem, or is it you're getting injected with the virus itself, and then that becomes an issue and people are afraid of that? You know, like, is it the chemical, or is it the other aspects of the vaccine that people should be worried about?
Very good question. And let me respond from beginning to end. The first thing is about 65 to 70% of what you mentioned is ingestion. You said eating the food. People eat these things. People drink these things. Mm-hmm. People ingest these things. The beauty of what you just said was you just proved my point when I stated the difference between injection versus ingestion. When you ingest it, the immunity takes place in the gut. It takes place in the digestive tract for the vast majority. So the body is able to detect it. The body is able to destroy potentially negative pathogens or unwanted viruses or negative bacteria through the ingestion or through the acidic juices within the stomach and the digestive system, smaller and larger intestines. That's number one. Number two, when you inject something, you literally are bypassing the body's natural defense. You're going around it, and you are running the risk of it damaging your nervous system, of it damaging the brain, of it damaging all of the neurological connections from the spinal cord, the brain, all the way down, because you're bypassing your body's natural defense. That's the difference between ingestion versus injection on the basics. Number three, when it comes to the vaccine ingredients versus the actual vaccine or the actual virus itself. And for people who don't know, the word vaccine means a weakened or dead strain of a virus injected in order to stimulate the body's immune response. What people don't look at is, what if the body is not stimulated? What if your white blood cells do not activate? What if your body does not literally activate in its full ability to fight against the virus? What happens? Your body then goes into a default and it starts to destroy itself. This is why people, come down with autoimmune disorders and all these neurological disorders. So when you're talking about the ingredients, brother, the reason why, as I said, with the 1986 National Childhood Vaccine Injury Act, the reason why that's so dangerous is because if anything happens to you as a result of being injected with a vaccine, you cannot sue them, but you can sue somebody if they harm you in surgery. You can sue a dentist if he harms your mouth, if he makes a mistake when he's pulling a tooth and it knocks off your nervous system, or they do something unnecessary. You can sue them. You can sue a person for punching you. You can sue a pharmaceutical company for what pills do to you. But I can't sue a vaccine maker when they have actual things that may possibly harm my body. I can't trust. That is what I'm saying. Just on that point, along with a large number of other things, but just on that alone, I can't trust you if you are not able to be held accountable in the case that something negative happens to me as a result of you injecting me with something that is questionable. And the reason why we have to look at this very closely is because, according to the Center for Disease Control, these are only facts from these government entities that we're also trying to use to justify and to validate our basis for taking vaccines. Now, whether if you are for vaccines or against them, it makes no never mind to me. But the science says something, and the laws say something. The Center for Disease Control have determined that it takes no less than 10 to 15 years to determine the full safety of a vaccine. How are you going to determine the full safety of a vaccine in less than 15 months? How are you going to determine the actual effects of these viruses mixed with the ingredients, as you were asking, in less than 15 months when you yourself have determined according to your own science, Mr. CDC, that it takes no less than 10 to 15 years. Well, now, this is not coming from Brother Rizza. This is coming from the Center for Disease Control. It's coming from the National Institute of Health, etc. So on that point, brother, how can you trust them is my question.
But the CDC, does the CDC make and manufacture vaccines?
The CDC provides the science that then goes to the pharmaceutical companies.
Right. So CDC does not make vaccines.
But those who make the vaccines are not able to be sued. They're held with no liability, so they can literally do anything.
Again, to get
we're talking about vaccine manufacturers. I mean, we can go to the vaccine manufacturers. That's all I've been talking about.
To get to some of the, so people know, right? There are people in chat who think that the CDC makes vaccines. The CDC does not make.
No, the CDC provides the science.
Okay, so that's that. But these companies have their own scientists, right?
And they all work together. Right? Yes.
The CDC, you can or you don't have to. It depends if you want to participate with the CDC. Again, the CDC is just representation amongst men, right? You mentioned that vaccines are the weakened or attenuated as certain viruses. In some cases, that's true. In other cases, it's not. In some cases, especially with the vaccine, I think Moderna is making, they're only giving you a protein. There's a protein, right? It's not the whole vaccine. It's not the whole virus. It's not a weakened state of the virus. It's none of that, right? It's the actual protein with the messenger RNA that gets to make the spike protein. That's all it is. It's not the virus at all, right? It's one aspect of the virus. So again, I asked you the question of the ingredients versus what the actual pieces of, like, is the actual virus that people should be worried about. And in the case of at least this vaccine everybody's hype on, there is no virus in it.
You said there's no virus in it?
There's no virus in it. There is no weakened attenuated virus in the, at least if I'm not, either the Oxford or the Moderna vaccine, right? The one that's coming back 94% effective, et cetera, right? What's in it is actually just a protein, right?
The protein is derived from the actual virus.
From the virus.
That's the only way they can determine that a vaccine is effective, is by taking something from the actual virus, as you said, the protein.
But what they're taking is a protein, right? And that inside of that protein is the spike for the coronavirus, right? But it doesn't give you the coronavirus. Right? So that's, again, another kind of like fundamental misconception about what we're facing now. We're not talking about rubella, mumps, measles. We're not talking about that vaccine. It's not 1986. The technologies are different. So you ask, how can they do 10 years versus 50? Because there's better technology, right? There's a greater understanding of the human biome, greater understanding of genetics. There's a greater understanding of virology. The internet, there's more people working on it at the same time, higher levels of communication and communication between scientists and laboratories and people. That's how you can get it quicker than 10 years. Right?
To your point.
Just like TVs and cars and clothes and music. I can make a song in minutes. Like 10 years ago, it took me 3 days. Right? So about the microbiome, right? And the digestive system, right? There is, from my understanding, my research about physiology, is that the digestive system is considered to be outside of the body, and that the body is around the digestive system. In the same way that there's a blood barrier brain, there's a blood-brain barrier. There's a barrier between your digestive system and the rest of your body. And if your digestive system was actually connected to your body in that way, as it's being kind of made to seem, you would die. Your body wouldn't be able to survive, right? The nutrients and things that come out of the food you digest, right, is passed through all of those mechanisms. But there's certain aspects of your body that are considered to be outside of your body, right? Where there's tons of bacteria and tons of viruses in your body right now that has no effect on you because it lives in the gut. So there's certain things, again, that people say, and it sounds good, and you can get lost in the detail. And people quote their science. I'm gonna quote my science. They quote their theories. They quote their theories. And at the end of the day, how can you say you can't trust the CDC with vaccines? The CDC don't make vaccines.
They provide the science for the vaccine.
They make the vaccines, which is like the thing, right? It's like
they literally provide the science, and they provide the science. The FDA, CDC, and all of the vaccine manufacturers have to work in conjunction with one another. So there would be no vaccines being manufactured without the CDC's approval.
So were there vaccines before the CDC existed?
We said, were there vaccines before the CDC existed?
Vaccines before the CDC existed. Were there vaccines before there was these, you have to work together in these other relationships?
Prior to the CDC being called the CDC, it was called the National Health Service. That's the organization that conducted the Tuskegee experiment. The organization that later evolved into the CDC is the organization that oversaw the Tuskegee experiment and approved the Tuskegee experiment to take place.
Right.
So prior to that, there were independent individuals, doctors, etc., who were overseeing vaccines, but there was no governing body to literally govern and maintain the safety, etc. Those had to be developed later. But to all of your points, brother, I heard everything you said, but nothing you said went against all of the documentation that I provided, none of the science that I provided from the CDC, none of the laws that I provided from the United States government, from Congress, from all of these things. I just wanted to make it very clear. But again, brother, if you take a vaccine, it's up to you. I mean, it's really your choice. But I'm going to give you a few more things here because, again,
hold on. Before we get into the other things, I just want us to be clear, and everybody to be clear, that the CDC does not make vaccines. So them providing
a mechanic doesn't make a car, but a mechanic knows how to fix one.
Them providing the science, right? These vaccine companies have their own scientists who may be better than the scientists that are at the CDC because they're operating off a different set of incentives than the CDC is. Right?
To your point, I mean, to your point. Okay, let's say I agree with your point. Let's say the vaccine manufacturers have a better way of manufacturing because they have better science than the CDC. Okay, to your point, let's go with that. Those vaccine manufacturers cannot be sued according to the National Childhood Vaccine Injury Act of 1986. So you're telling me we should trust the organization that can be sued and are held with no liability. We should trust them with our lives because they may have better science, but they can't be sued if we are negatively affected by the vaccine.
That's malpractice suits. There's doctors. Ain't got nothing to do with vaccines. But
we're only talking about vaccines, brother.
Okay, so you're talking about malpractice, right? I don't want to put somebody. It's basically right. Or is it not?
The malpractice will be on the doctor as an actual practice, but the vaccine manufacturers, it's not an actual clinic or practice.
Okay, you got a company that's working in the medical space, right? It's vaccines, medicine, at least. We get into that. Okay, so you got
vaccines are legally classified as a drug, but I'm with you.
Drug. Okay, okay, I get you. Right. They don't want to be sued because what are the numbers? 3,000 out of every 300 million people are going to have an adverse effect. Right?
Yeah, the numbers, well, as of now, they can't tell any numbers because the COVID vaccine is so new. They have no actual basis or science. They have no full trials. So they're literally working with nothing.
I'm talking about older vaccines. So the COVID vaccine out the way. From what I've seen, there was an issue where there was a vaccine where there was either 300 to 3,000 people that would have an adverse effect, right? Mm-hmm. Versus the 300 million people who wouldn't. That would actually give them a certain level of benefit, a certain level of protection. And people were so worried about those 3,000 because that 3,000, that class action lawsuit could wipe them out, and they're done, right? So 3,000.
Not according to NCVIA.
Well,
I'm only telling you the actual facts and the laws, bro. I don't go into the conjecture. I just go to the laws and actual facts.
I get what you're saying, like that Congress bill disallowed that from happening, or allows that to happen. They can't sue them, but that's the logic behind it, because there's 300 people that can sue us that are gonna have a documentable, verifiable negative effect to taking this vaccine. They're gonna sue us.
I can validate your point. No, I mean, I can support your point.
They're going to sue us. When they sue us, they're going to wipe us out. We're not taking into consideration that there's 300 million people on the other side who've actually benefited from the vaccine. So the choice is to be made is thus. Do we focus on making sure that the 300, do we accept that collateral damage, right? Or we just dead the program completely, regardless if it's going to help exponentially more people?
That sounds dangerously close to Dr. Henry Kissinger, brother. Dangerously close to
I'm just
mad
giving
science.
what the logic is.
But let me validate your point, because what you said was something very, very specific, and I want to support Brother Lupe's point, because you just made a statement regarding vaccines and wiping them out and things of that nature. Have you ever heard of the vaccine compensation program, the vaccine court? Okay, as a result of 1986, the vaccine court was established for parents or anyone who have been found to have a negative adverse effect to vaccines. The vaccine court has paid out over $4 billion to multiple families who have proven that vaccines have either harmed them, their child, caused a child to go blind, come down with autism, have different neurological disabilities, disorders, or have died. The vaccine court has paid out over $4 billion, which literally has proven you, the government, have harmed me and my child as a result of your vaccines. That's number one. Number two.
How many families? How many people?
Thousands. Okay. And even actually more. The numbers are going up every week because they weren't reporting all of them. According to the VAERS, again, the VAERS system, the Vaccine Adverse Events Reporting System, which is a part of the Health and Human Services, which is in collaboration with the Center for Disease Control and the vaccine manufacturers, they have not reported, literally, they've reported less than 10% of all of the negative effects, brother. So it's potentially millions who are affected. Now, this is coming from them. I'm not going off of any opinion, brother. I don't do opinion.
Right, potential. I mean, potential is opinion in and of itself, right? But potentially there's millions. Potentially there's tens of millions. But on paper, right? Money that's been paid out, that $4 billion went to thousands of people. Again, I assert that the logic of a vaccine company and of a CDC organization, Department of Public Health, whatever, is say we're going to help the majority, right? We need to make the decision to say, hey, we're going to put something in the market that we know is going to kill or adversely affect 5% of the population.
Would you offer yourself up as a test subject?
But it's going to save 95%.
Would you offer yourself up as a test subject?
Absolutely.
Would you offer?
Absolutely.
You would offer yourself up as a test subject to?
Absolutely.
Wow.
Absolutely.
Okay. So your logic, brother, is for you personally, and that's okay. Everyone has it.
No, because that's
perfectly fine.
There's literally hundreds of thousands of people right now participating in the COVID-19 vaccination program. Hundreds
and many have been injured, which is why the studies have to be stopped and have been stopped. Moderna stopped theirs, Pfizer stopped theirs, AstraZeneca stopped theirs because of all the negative effects that have happened within the first 2 to 3 weeks.
With very small, very tiny, singular people, 1 or 2 people, not thousands, right? Where they stopped it for the sake of appeasing people who disagree with vaccine, people who have their critiques to stay true.
No, it's for science. It's not about appeasing, brother. It's about science.
They do it for various reasons. But all of those programs are back up and running.
Yes, in the name of profit, not in the name of science. These are not in the name of science. And it wasn't just 1 or 2 people who have been harmed, brother. A few people came down with specifically spinal disorders as a result of these vaccine injuries. A few people have actually died, 2 of them, and they tried to say that it wasn't conclusive as to whether or not these people received the vaccine or a placebo. So it's very interesting. The people who died, you can't determine whether it was a placebo or vaccine.
Or not. The science, certain people can, because they have access to who got the placebo and who didn't. That's the piece about vaccines that want the people to know too. That half the people didn't get it. They got the placebo. So the people who could have died, to your point, the people who got the placebo, right? But it
wasn't determined.
We wouldn't get that information, right? So you mentioned 2 people died, right? Currently, the body count for COVID-19 is 1 million. Right? No vaccines, no treatments, none of that. 1 million people. 200 and some odd thousand here in the States alone. People whose mothers and fathers and sisters and brothers, family members on this, right? And 2 people died.
Those numbers, brother, were skewed. The CDC stated that 94% of those who died from COVID died with prior pre-existing conditions, and only 6% died directly related to the COVID-19 virus.
But what does COVID do?
COVID hardens the mucus within the lungs, preventing a person from being able to breathe.
And COVID exploits certain pre-existing conditions in people, right?
Correct. Which any virus can do.
Heightens them and expresses them, right, at a higher rate than they would do naturally.
Mm-hmm.
So even if the COVID don't kill you, what the COVID's going to do to your body and your pre-existing conditions, right, will kill you. Mm-hmm. So if you have pre-existing conditions, if you have certain maybe you're not even aware that you have certain conditions. If you catch COVID, COVID's going to make it known. So it's in your favor to protect yourself from COVID, whether the COVID's going to kill you or not.
I agree with that. But is it in your favor to take an experimental concocted chemical vaccine that has not been proven to be safe as the solution, or is it conclusive and logical to go by natural remedies, natural means that have been proven, from steaming to heightened levels of liposomal injected liquid vitamin C therapy? Is it logical to do things that even the doctors themselves do, but they will not? Just so you know, the vast majority of doctors do not take these vaccines. As a matter of fact, the vaccines that are called dirty vaccines, there's a difference. They have the dirty vaccines and the clean vaccines. Mm-hmm. This was admitted where they send dirty vaccines that have chemicals to the zip codes of poor and impoverished communities, yep. Black, brown, and poor white. The yep. Clean so-called vaccines are sent to communities of people who have higher levels of money, better zip codes, Jewish, white people who have more yep. money, etc. This is very known. So when it comes to the COVID vaccine, the major point is these are not fully tested. These are not determined to be safe, not even close.
They're not.
These are not anything that we can trust at all because there has not been a study long enough to determine the safety. So I'm only going with the science, brother. And
but here's here's the big macro in everything that you just said. Here's the fundamental piece in everything you just said. Nobody in the general public has the vaccine yet, because everything that you just said is still being processed, proven through right now. Nobody has it. Right?
Because it's not safe and it hasn't been determined to be released to the public yet.
And the people who are being experimented upon are people who volunteered for this program. Right?
Correct.
They look at it from a situation where
because they believe what the government is telling them and they don't know the actual facts.
I mean, some people walk into this knowing what it is. Some people not. Again, some people don't even.
How can we know what it is if the vaccine hasn't been determined to be safe yet, brother?
Again, because it's a double blind or triple blind study. Half the people aren't even getting it. Half the people that are even in the program aren't even getting the vaccine.
So if they're not getting the vaccine, why would you take a vaccine that the people aren't getting, brother?
Again, everything that you just said rest upon that nobody has it yet, because all the concerns you just stated have not been proven yet. And scientists
correct. So why should we trust the vaccine, brother?
Because the study's not done.
Right. So are you going to take a vaccine from a study that has not been proven to determine that it is safe?
Right. I wouldn't take McDonald's from what you mean? I wouldn't wear clothes of a brother who didn't wash his ass. Like that. I'm not
right. So you said that but you did say you would take the vaccine, but it's not safe. It's not determined to be safe. So you would take it?
No. As from the pain and suffering that I've seen, people experiencing and going through COVID-19, having a friend been in a coma, right? Having people whose family members have died, right?
Yes.
In my state, measuring my health, thinking about my situation and what I could do for my people, I'm willing to sacrifice something of myself if it's going to lead to exponentially high to my people, for sure. And my people, Black people, white people, is Mexicans, Jews, whomever, right? The people of this planet. If I'm of a shape and I can give myself a certain bit of study, if it's going to bring benefit to other people, that's a sacrifice I'm willing to make. I do it with music,
and that is admirable.
I do it with
that's admirable, right? Brother. So, are you willing to meet with people who have overcome COVID by natural means, which are the vast majority?
Yes, there's the vast majority of people. The vast majority of people, they get through COVID without a problem. But we're not talking about the vast majority. The vast majority of people, right? They give it to people who aren't the vast majority who die. So,
just like most diseases, yes.
Those same people are the same people that don't want to social distance. Again, at the end of the day, I opened up this conversation with it. I opened up a chat with it. You don't need a vaccine at all. Whether it's made by Dr. Sebi, made by you, made by the CDC, whatever. If you know where the source of the malady is coming from,
Mm-hmm.
and you're able to do what be done to keep yourself away from it. In this case,
right.
we are the source, right? Have it got here, have whatever is here, we're the source. When you go outside, there is no social distancing, not in a serious way. The government's not going to mandate it. The masks aren't being worn, right? So people aren't doing what you would need to do to not have. So for those same people to say, well, we don't want a vaccine either, that's fine. You don't have to take it. It's not mandatory, right? And COVID
will be. That's the thing.
We don't gamble. We don't gamble, but I will put money on that COVID-19 is not going to be mandatory.
I don't gamble either. I'm only going off of the administration, the Biden administration, as well as part of the Trump administration, where they have determined in their documentation as far as the agenda that they're pushing per COVID-19 vaccine distribution, along with the Department of Defense, CDC, FDA, HHS, that it will be made mandatory. Now, Joe Biden has stated this. Made mandatory
folks in essential capacities. It will be made mandatory folks where they deal with large people, right? It's going to be made for certain folks for sure, as it should be.
Right.
The rest of the population, half the people are not going to take this vaccine. So we're kind of spinning our wheels, because you know that half these people in this country, white, black, whatever, they're not going to take this vaccine, right?
Correct.
Even
now, I will say this, brother. I fought against SB 277 in 2016 here in California, Senate Bill 277, where we were fighting against the government saying that you will not be able to take your child to school, public, private, or daycare without them having a vaccine. And SB 277 was specifically targeting the religious exemption. Right. So they were saying, we know more than God knows. Religion is, yes, brother. And they said religion. Wait, I'm sorry, say it again.
They do.
They know more than what God knows? Yes. Okay.
When it comes to science, yes. Yes, they do.
All right. I'll say it this way, brother. Because that's a whole nother topic. But what I'm saying is the right to choose. The right to choose. My point is the right to choose, brother.
When you bring up the religious kind of waiver, I go straight to New York City.
Let's do it. I went to New York and I was exposed to New York with Robert Kennedy Jr. Yes. Yes.
The Hasidic community in New York did not want to take measles shots because of a religious exemption. Right? And
they were bringing the measles from Israel. Yes, they were bringing the measles from Israel.
In Williamsburg, there was a massive outbreak of the measles. Right?
Rockland County, New York.
Purely because of the religious exemption. Right? New York was furious. All of New York was furious, right? Even they were starting to look at Hasidic Jews as kind of being like, oh no, those are at the plague or something like that, right? But they were upset. They were mad because very easy, right? It's infringing on anybody's right. It's not killing. You know, it kills people. Measles kills people for sure. It kills kids, right? That's why they want you to get rid of it, right? So
it's a very small number on that one.
So for me, some people think that God is in here. God is out there. We can't understand God. When people say God, they talking about their logic. They talking about their reference points, they intellect, what they believe should be right. They try and project it through a lens like God agrees with you. God don't agree with you.
I don't. That's not what I mean when I say God. No, right. That's not what I mean. But everything that I say regarding God is dealing with actual proven science, real science. So I don't go. We don't do spookism.
Right, but
it's believe in the spook God, bro.
It's been proven that measles kills kids, and that it's easily certain vaccines spreads,
do the same.
Right, that it easily spreads, and that you can halt it immediately, and never have to deal with this again. Right. So that's science. That's honest, true, but. That's not.
Now, brother, I've given multiple references from the same government that you are saying you are quoting from, but I've quoted actual documentation, statistics, laws, everything SB 277 right here in California, when that was passed, the major thing that we're looking at is the right to choose. Even if you are for vaccines or against vaccines, that's your choice. But are you for the right for a person to choose?
That's fine.
That is what we were fighting against, and they took that away.
That's fine.
So parents, so now, brother, now you're dealing with a totalitarian government. Now you're moving into a form of Nazism, fascism, an Adolf Hitler type of government. Do you agree with that?
No. Should you be allowed to choose for other people?
No, choose for myself.
Okay.
I'm not going to force you to take a vaccine. No, I'm not going to encourage you. No, I'm going to encourage you not to take one. I'm going to encourage you to have the right to choose.
Right. What if the choice of you not taking a vaccine gets 80 people sick?
Okay, but it's still my right to choose. And if vaccines work, why are you afraid of my child infecting yours if vaccines work and you take a vaccine? If your vaccines work, then why are you afraid? Why would you be afraid of me if you know? You know what a vaccine? No, I'm not saying you. I'm saying the people who choose a vaccine.
Yes.
If you are so certain that vaccines work, why are you afraid of me and my child if you decide to take a vaccine and I don't?
Because they love their kids.
No, but if their children take a vaccine, let's say you take the vaccine, your children take the vaccine, and you're sure vaccines work, you're positive, good. That means you will be immune, you'll be fine, so you won't be infected by me not taking it.
Right? We're dealing with now, because most people don't take vaccines. So that's why
the majority of people in America, brother. So again, my question is, if you are so certain vaccines work, not just you, anyone, if they are positive vaccines work, why would you be nervous or afraid of me if I don't take one?
Because maybe they're not afraid for themselves. Okay.
They're
vaccinated, so they're not worried about it. But they also know that everybody's not vaccinated.
That's fine, but whoever's vaccinated is fine, right?
They also know that grandma's not vaccinated.
But grandma lived longer than most of us who get vaccinated.
But we lost about 200,000 grandmothers and grandfathers in the past 8 months who would have still been here.
94% of those were because of pre-existing conditions, and only 6% were due to actual COVID-19, according to the CDC.
Still been here. COVID-19 exasperated and expressed and exploited and promoted and accelerated their pre-existing condition.
Along with the flu, along with their diabetes, along with their obesity, yes.
Yeah,
I agree, but it wasn't due to COVID alone, brother.
Yeah, but again, COVID caused and accelerated the pre-existing conditions that they had, shortening their life to the point where they have no life. And there's 205,000 people who can attest to being the case.
Anytime the immunity is attacked, anything you have is increased. Anytime the immune system is attacked.
One question I wanted to ask was, if you because you do all the natural, neuropathical, homeopathic, all of that good stuff, right? Does that mean you can't catch viruses?
No, we catch viruses every day.
Okay.
We're breathing in viruses right now, but because of our immune system, we're still alive. That's called natural immunity.
Yeah,
we fight viruses every single day without vaccines. I've never been vaccinated, brother, and I've never been sick. I've been around people who have been sick, but I never got sick. I've never been vaccinated, just so you know. My mother's a naturopathic doctor. Like this I've been involved in this area for years with medical science, as well as naturopathic science, as well as herbalists, as well as physicians, dietitians, every area. So I'm not biased on just the naturopathic remedies. I'm looking at the science on both ends. I'm looking at the medical science. Matter of fact, the majority of what I quoted to you was the medical science from the medical documentation and these medical government organizations. I'm not quoting naturopathic doctors and all. No, I'm quoting the actual science from the government that you are saying we should trust when it comes to the vaccine. But then again, you turn around and say we shouldn't take a vaccine. You know, like you contradicted a lot of things you said, brother.
First of all, we got to, again, go back to this. The government doesn't make vaccines. The CDC does not make vaccines.
The vaccine manufacturers are a part of the United States government.
I mean,
Moderna, AstraZeneca, Pfizer, GlaxoSmithKline, Merck.
Everybody with a social security number is attached to the United States government in that case, right? So,
yeah, these are straw man arguments, brother. I mean, just on the basics, the vaccine manufacturers are a part of the United States government. I'm just
Pfizer, Moderna, Johnson & Johnson, like these are government, like federally funded, funded by taxpayer dollars, which is not true. Whereas the CDC is. The CDC, which does not make vaccines. So when you say trust the government, I'm not saying, I didn't mention the government at all. Not one time this entire conversation did I say the word the government. Right?
So we should trust vaccine manufacturers, not the CDC, right? So we should trust vaccine manufacturers, right?
I think that you should look at the whole situation. The whole situation. Look at the vaccine. Look how niggas is acting in the streets. Look at
Absolutely.
look at your house and the people that aren't in it because they're in the hospital right now. Right?
Absolutely, I agree.
Of this situation. Look at the past 8 months. Look at how you want to be in the future. Look at all of it.
Yeah.
Focus on each one in extreme detail as deep as you want to, but make sure that you come back up to the surface and add it into the entire picture. When I look at the entire picture of COVID-19, I look at the vaccine being a very credible path and a way out.
But there is nothing to determine that. The only thing to determine a credible path is the natural remedies by which people have utilized in order to get over COVID naturally. That is the only determined, surefire thing that has actual credible proof, has a long history.
There's 250,000 people who say otherwise. That's not a small number, right? And as much
according to that number, again, 94% of that number, the CDC says, is because of pre-existing conditions. Only 6% of people have been determined to die directly from COVID-19, according to the CDC, brother. I don't know what you're quoting, but I'm quoting CDC, vaccine manufacturers. I'm quoting them.
I'm quoting doctors and
what doctor has better science? What doctor has more science on the numbers than the CDC? Because we're recording. Who else is recording?
You just said that the CDC. We can't trust the CDC. But not supposed to trust the CDC.
No, we can't trust any of them. But I'm saying if you're going to quote somebody, quote the authority that you're getting information from. That's all. Just which authorities you get information from.
Like, if we're not supposed to trust the CDC, how are we going to turn around and trust their stats about what they say about 94% of the people who died didn't die from COVID-19, they died from pre-existing conditions. But then turn around and physicians who working in the emergency rooms or are actually dying, recognize that person, that patient that they had in that nursing home who had diabetes, they would have been here if it wasn't for them catching this virus and accelerating their condition.
Say it again, because it accelerated their condition. If
COVID does nothing else, if COVID-19 does nothing else, right? COVID-19 can make the sunflowers grow. But the one thing that it does, if you have a pre-existing condition, if you have the flu, it's going to make your flu that much more worse. If you have diabetes, it's going to make your diabetes that much more worse. If you have pneumonia, it's going to make your pneumonia that much more worse, right?
Correct. That's called being immunocompromised. Whenever the immune system is packed, it's going to increase whatever you already have. Now,
Pete, you ain't never been sick, like you just said.
Right.
My mother waived us from vaccines when we were kids too.
Yeah.
Right? So there was a waiver you could sign. We still went to school. We still did that. We caught ringworm and chicken pox and all that shit, right?
Yeah.
I took my first set of vaccines when I wanted to go to India. Actually, no, I took my first vaccines when I went to Africa. Right? Climbed Mount Kilimanjaro, then turned around and went to India. So I got my whole list of shit. You've never been sick. I've been thoroughly sick. I've had pneumonia and almost died from it. It's the worst feeling in the world. It's absolutely horrific. Right? You want to die. You'd rather die than have it. Pull the plug. Take me off the machine. Take me off the ventilator. This shit hurts. Right? I can't move. I can't function. I can't do anything. I'd rather be dead. Right? That people that are experiencing that pain, which you've never, that you can empathize with because you've never felt, who are feeling that right now. And there are no remedies. There are no treatments when you have it. It's ravaging your body. You can drink a whole gallon of vitamin D. It's not going to do nothing. I was getting vitamin C IVs, 25,000 milligrams directly into my vein. It wasn't doing shit. Right? The people experiencing that type of pain and are standing at the precipice looking over into that type of pain. And the only thing, one of the only things, let's not say the only thing, but one of the things that could save them is a vaccine. Who ain't finna take it because they believe that the CDC manufactured and they can't trust the government. Who believe their body doesn't produce formaldehyde naturally. Right? They don't know that. Right? They believe that the Tuskegee experiment actually had something to do with vaccines. It wasn't a vaccine for syphilis. It didn't even exist. It had nothing to do with vaccines. But that's what they believe, right? Everything that I just said isn't true. And they're going to dive off that precipice. They're going to dive off that precipice into that pneumonia, into that pain. They're going to realize that because they didn't go to the doctor their whole life, because they never trusted doctors, they didn't know the doctors. They didn't know their body was laced with all kinds of pre-existing conditions, whether it be, if there's something out there that could assuage that and keep people from that, I'm with it. And do the research, science, and everything that you said, like the CDC don't make vaccines. If we're not supposed to trust the CDC, then how are we supposed to trust their statistics at the same time too?
Okay. So I heard everything you said, brother. And I'll say this. One, I don't need to know what it feels like to be sick in order to know what helps a person that is sick. It's like me going to a doctor. I don't need to be a doctor in order to diagnose or to help a person to resolve something. I have to be a doctor if I just meet with a doctor and he says, this is a solution for that. I don't need to be a mechanic to know how to fix a car. And if I go to a mechanic and he fixes it for me, or he tells me, listen, this is your problem, this is the solution. So I don't need to experience it in order to know how to resolve it. If people are going through it themselves and they say, I took this, 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 and it worked, then that's how you can do it. I don't have to almost die in order to know what that looks like. Now, to feel it is one thing, that's fine. But what we're looking at is, can we trust a so-called solution that has not been determined to be safe, that cannot be held with liability, meaning you can't sue them if it does show that it harmed you, and that they have no studies, no long-term anything proof whatsoever to determine that it is safe, that it is effective, that it is good for the body, that it does not harm me. There is nothing which justifies what you said as it pertains to taking a vaccine. If a person were dying and they said, well, we have a vaccine for you, but check this out, it hasn't been fully tested. You can't sue anybody if this harms you. There is no long-term proof that determines anybody has been cured of the virus that you are now afflicted with through this vaccine or with this vaccine. But there are some people over here who have taken all of these other solutions that have a long proof of history, that have a long proof of efficacy, that have a long proof of resolve, that have done everything that you need and require. Which one are you going to take? I'm not going to take the vaccine simply because people are saying it sounds nice when they have no proof to back up what they're saying, brother. That's all I'm saying. There is no proof to what you're saying at all. But everything that I have given is nothing but proof and actual facts. What you've given is conjecture, and you've given fear. That's called fear-based illogic that you just gave, brother. And that's okay. That is okay. My only thing is we should have the right to choose. If you want to take a vaccine, you can do that. If I don't want to take one, I should have the right to do that as well. Your argument on saying, well, listen, Rizza, you not being able to take one, should that be a choice that affects everybody?
But it does.
And of course not. Of course not. I should have the right to choose to not take one. You should have the right to choose to take one. And if vaccines work, then you shouldn't be afraid of me not taking one and you taking one. The vaccines are so certain, factual to work.
Like I said, the flaw in your approach is thus. You can have the right to choose. We agree with that. Everybody has the right for you to choose in circumstances where your choice doesn't affect other people around you in a negative degree, especially people who you don't know. Now, if you want to put your own family at risk, fine, right? It's not fine, but it's fine because that's life, right? But what about the people next door and the people across the street and the people you just bump into at the grocery store, right? And you ain't got no measles shot, you there, right? They ain't got their measles shot. You're not in a safe space, right? You can't have those guarantees like you have at school. School is basically a safe zone, right? Well, yeah, we know half the kids ain't gonna take it, but we at least know who ain't got it, right? And at least we're on standby, right? So if this kid flips into epileptic shock, right? We can we on standby him. We keep a nurse at a school, full time at schools, right? Because you don't know what's going on, right? So to use the school as a school is a safe space, but people don't live their whole lives in school. Those type of restrictions and same type of standards don't exist at the grocery store. They don't exist at the movie theater. They don't exist at the bowling alley. They don't exist at the mosque. They don't. You walk to the mosque, give it to the entire mosque, right? They didn't sign up for that. So my piece on that, why that approach is a little suspect to me, is that you got to continue with the conversation. You got to continue with the statement. Yes, I agree with the right to choice, right? But as long as it doesn't interfere, right, or counter when my individual choice affects the public, right?
We're both on the same page on that.
There's not a lot of science on the vaccine.
There's none, brother.
I'm gonna say none. Not go that far, because I've seen it. So there's not a lot of science on the vaccine. You've
seen the science on the